This is the Great Alaska Hunting Podcast. I'm Dalton Gray.
And I'm Ryan Humphreys.
Broadcasting from our hometown of Fairbanks, Alaska. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Great Alaska Hunting Podcast, everybody. I'm Dalton.
I'm Mo.
And we're joined this week by a special guest. I know we said that 2 weeks ago, but we have another special guest on the podcast. Chiam Loyd. Cue the applause.
Yeah, my rap music intro.
like your boxing walkout music. Chiam Loyd from Peaks Equipment, videographer extraordinaire, Mudslinger 101 tutorials. If you haven't watched his masterclass, then you should check him out online.
Techniques there.
Well, you and I have been talking about this for a while. You are now working with Peaks Equipment on a little bit higher level as of recently, and we are excited to have you on and do a little bit of Q&A and pick your brain on a few things, but also just to hear some of your stories. And I think this will be a lot of fun. So thanks for joining us today, Chiam.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm always happy to make an appearance on the Alaskan podcast. Well,
we appreciate it. So I guess for folks that don't know who you are, you know, I would imagine that a lot of people tend to not notice the person behind the camera, and there are people that have watched the deer hunt that my wife and I and you and Ryan and his daughter went out on in 2023 August. Is that right? Has it already been a few years now?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it has been that long.
Yeah, I think it was August of 23, and but the five of us took off on a deer hunt down in the southeastern part of the state, and you were the camera guy for it, and that was our first meeting in person anyway, and you and I have kind of stayed in touch over time from that, and you did a good job with that video for the whole hunt series. I think that was a couple of parts that's out on YouTube somewhere, but yeah, I was very interested in the amount of equipment that you seem to have to bring everywhere, and there's a lot of skill that goes into what you do, and to be able to have the vision to either tell a story or just document events and different ways that you have to go through that process. So I'm looking forward to hearing some more about that. I think there's a lot of interesting aspects to that part of the industry that really probably tends to go unnoticed by a lot of viewers. So I guess we can start at the beginning and just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from, where you grew up, and how you kind of ended up where you are now.
So I'm actually a long ways from home. I drove down too many times this year. I keep saying I'm not going to drive down, but then I look at the price of plane tickets to Texas, and it's always driving instead of flying. So I'm originally from East Texas, Longview area, and now I'm in Bozeman, Montana, which is a stark change. Although right now, if I'm not wrong, I believe it's colder in Texas than it is in Montana, which is really shocking. There's no snow on the ground here. It's crazy. All my friends are texting me like, "Dude, what's up with Montana?" Like, I don't know. If you figure it out, let me know, because we're trying to figure it out too. I mean, it's wild. The deer and stuff are they're everywhere. There's no, every year on my drive home here in Bozeman out to the Three Forks area, there's a congested part that's next to some farm bottomland next to the Missouri River where the Gallatin hits the Trident. That's kind of back in there in the mountains where I live. And not only will I see moose and stuff like that Trident area has, but the deer just congest there because there's nowhere else to go, really. It's a wintering ground for some deer locally there. and I have not seen a one. But if you stop and you glass up, they're still way up, and it's weird. It's weird seeing that. So it's yeah, I believe it was like 58 today in January, and it's usually like negatives or single digits. Anyways, usually a stark contrast from Texas, where I'm from. But yeah, grew up in Texas. I shouldn't really be in the outdoor industry at all. My dad's a basketball coach. His dad was a basketball coach, and um, yeah, so that's all I knew growing up. I was the white kid on the team, calling plays, point guard, and yeah, I at some point traded Jordans for some Krispies. I don't know when that happened, but it happened, and yeah, I think it was probably. I mean, I was so basketball focused, and then at some point, probably a realism hit me a little bit sooner than it would some people maybe at that age because Dalton knows because we've met in person. But your basketball career is over when you cap out your height at 5'7", 5'8". It's done. You're not you're not going. There's no NBA for you, kid. So I started realizing that pretty quick, and then I love the game, and I still love watching basketball and playing pickup ball and stuff like that. And it's always surprising. I can always go hustle up some money if I need to, because no one suspects the short white kid to do anything. But uh, anyway, somewhere, I mean, I got my driver's license, and like every kid, started driving around. And being in East Texas, there's only a few things to do: is shoot hogs, shoot deer, shoot snakes, and shoot ducks. And so, eventually, I started hanging around the right kind of people, and ended up bringing the basketball team with me. In fact, buddy of mine said the other day, they went on to win state the year after I left. Sadly, we got to state and didn't win state, and this kid was on the team that won state the year after I graduated. But he said to this day, some of his best memories are running around in the creeks shooting water moccasins. And dude's just a basketball player, not at all a hunter, none of that. But he's like, man, I still remember those days. And I'm like, no, you don't. He's like, dude, I do. I swear it was awesome. I loved that. So that's always good. You should have seen the gang back in the day. It was, like Eminem and 50 Cent and all those guys. I'm Eminem up at the front, and I got my gang with me. But yeah, we started just doing some redneck stuff, and I worked on a ranch. The owner of the ranch lived near my house out in the sticks, and we went to church with him. His name was Mr. Pace, and he had a bunch of acreage, and I helped manage some of the whitetail stands and all that kind of stuff, push cattle around, all that good stuff. And I always did have a weird affinity for the outdoors. I remember in the third grade, I had the worst chigger outbreak I've ever had because I decided to put up a tarp and sleep on the ground in summer in Texas, and that is not ideal. You don't do that, and I didn't know that at the time. But I had read this survival book that told me that you can pitch a tent with a tarp, and so I tried it and awoke the next day, and I looked like I had chicken pox from all the chiggers. And so that was awful. And I guess,
Chigger, kind of like a no-see-em that we have up here.
oh, they're like little mites. They burrow in your skin. It's actually terrifying the further you die. If you Google this, you'll be scared. You'll never go to the South. Yeah, and also that's another funny story. Chigger is, it's a word that you got to kind of be careful how you say that. I was in Walmart in college, and we did some camping, and we came back middle of summer camping, and of course I go to school near Little Rock, Arkansas. If you know the South, you know that is a rough place. And anyways, there was a sweet black lady helping me out because I was trying to find this, and I'm trying to be careful. I was like, I need like bug bite medicine, but the bottle, the vial is literally like this pink stuff, the salve that's called Chigger X, and I'm trying to not say that word just to keep clear of any confusion. And finally, I'm like, no, it's Chigger X, and she's like, excuse me. And I was like, Chigger, like the bug. Like, I know you've heard that, like the bug. She's like, I ain't never heard that in my life. And I pull it up, and she's like reading this thing. She's like, honey, that's terrifying. And I'm like, I know I've got, and I like pull up my basketball shorts and show a little thigh, and it looks like I've got Stranger Things bugs all in my thigh. And she's like, okay, we're going to find that for you. And so anyways, yeah, that's that's the South right there. A little story. But yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that, but just a fun little story. But
There's something about camping in Texas.
Oh gosh, you don't do it unless you're near the water. And then if you're near the water, you got water moccasins, so it's, 50-50 odds of survival. Um, but um, yeah, we would do some snake hunting, some hog hunting, and I just always had this weird affinity. No one in my family, none of my cousins, no one really hunted. I'd never had anyone to take me. So I kind of relied on buddies and, being a young, savvy man, the internet, and, pieced together a PVC blind on my flat bottom with a trolling motor that worked half the time and got after some ducks. And boy, I thought it was, this is how little I knew about birds. I shot my first mallard, big air quotes here. I thought legitimately thought it was a mutant mallard. I can send you guys the picture later. But it was not a mutant mallard. It was a Hollywood bird. It was a spoonbill. So, but I thought, like, I took a picture. I'm like, oh, it's just a jacked up mallard, but I'll take the W. I'll take the win. And that was like, I got I got this mallard in my head. And yeah, me and my dog posed with this one bird, and I was so proud. But you can't take that away from me. That was a great memory. It wasn't until like 2 years later that I finally realized that that was not a mallard, and that picture's even better now. So um, but I just started doing that kind of stuff, and Texas is a really rough place to grow up hunting if you're not wealthy, if you don't own a bunch of land. There is little to none. I think it's 90%, that the numbers out there, but it's close to 90, 80 or 90% private land. It's very few. It's only like lakes and stuff that are, there's like one, I want to say one state park that you can hunt in that's like actually huntable, and everything else is core land, like Corps of Engineer land, which if I would have had awareness and Onyx when I was in high school, I could have done a lot more damage because I was home this year for Christmas and went out, and me and a buddy got on some wood ducks when it was like 90 degrees, which is near impossible. But with Onyx and a little bit of kayak paddling, it was so funny. Me and him were we had no boats. He brought his kayak, and I'm like, dude, we got a scout, and he didn't bring any other kayak or anything. So I'm like, well, we got to do what we got to do. So there's two guys in a canoe, a one man canoe kayak hybrid, and we basically look like we're spooning rowing down this little river, but we got it done. And but if we would have just had the knowledge of Onyx back then, I could have done a lot more damage. But just got into it a little bit. I remember it was a small town, Avenger, that I grew up in, or not grew up in. I actually moved a lot because my dad was a coach and never stationary. But the town I graduated from, which ironically is also where my grandpa won a couple state championships and my dad graduated from as well. So everyone there knows me, small community. At the time, I drove a bright gold, like a pimp mobile, like a bright gold F-150. And it was, you couldn't miss it. And I'm pulled up at the duck hole at old Pruitt Lake down there in Avenger. And I had I think it was, yeah, I had my mom for first period. Unfortunately for me, she was the toughest teacher I had. And but I had talked to her in the morning. Yeah, I talked to her in the morning, and I'm like, "Hey, mom, I really feel like they're going to be out today. It's kind of cold. Let me go out and hunt." She's like, "Okay." She's like, "How late you going to be?" Yeah, I'll be there halfway through class. She's like, "Okay, you got my permission as a teacher, whatever." Well, one of her friends that's also a teacher, she snitched me out so fast. She passed the boat ramp from her house, and my mom could not wait to tell me when I got into class. She's like, "I had two people call me and tell me that you were playing hooky and at the boat ramp." And of course she knew, but it's just funny. I could not get away with anything in that truck, but just started to sort of sink into, I just liked hunting, liked being outdoors. I guess the freedom of it, the American spirit of it. I don't know. I just really liked it. And as much as I liked basketball, um, like I said, I couldn't go pro in basketball. So I decided I might as well figure out how to put some meat on the table by learning how to hunt. So, because I think it was second or third grade, my mom probably still has this paper, but I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there were two things I put on there. A mountain man or a mail carrier. Don't know why mail carrier, but Mountain Man was number one. And if that failed, oh boy, I was going to get in that USPS truck and be riding around with the doors off. I don't know why that stuck with me so much that I wanted to be a mailman, but I that was my fallback is, so if this doesn't work out here at Peaks, you can probably catch me at the post office, the local post office. So, um, but yeah, that was growing up in high school. And then at some point in high school, I stole the basketball game camera, because our science teacher told me that there was this competition, this state film competition, and I had started an AV class. I made my dad, because he was also a teacher at the school, and he had this art class, and I like forced him into making it an AV class because I had some interest in film. Like I'd film these hog hunts and these snake hunts, and basically just killing things on GoPro and then putting it together. Um, and so I'd started doing that a little bit, and we did the AV class, and we would present our weekly film to the school. And I just really liked that. Like I liked all the little kids laughing at the jokes and the skits. And some part of me deeply related to telling stories, not necessarily just to younger kids, but there was people in our grade and the teachers would get a kick out of it. And they would talk to me about it in the hallway. And there was just something like about giving back in that kind of way, that just felt right for me. And so I was like, with that affirmation, like that feel good of like, man, I can do this. I took that science teacher's word for it and entered into this. It was like one of those click it or ticket type things, like don't drink and drive for high schoolers. And it was some kind of state competition. And it was horrible and corny and bad. But we won state against schools, private schools that had real AV classes and real cameras. And we snuck out of class to film in like an hour this stupid little thing with the basketball game camera, and pieced it together on like iMovie. And the next thing we know, like I didn't tell anyone that I actually entered it. Like we just did it, and like took the tardiness to class, and we never said what we were doing. We just did it, and we submitted it, and I did online. And I don't check my emails to this day. I'm still the same way. I don't really check emails. And apparently they'd been trying to reach me, but this lady and this dude shows up at the school, and I get called to the office, and which is not infrequent. So I'm like, all right, here we go. What is it this time? And I roll in there, and the superintendent's like, kind of, why didn't you tell us? And I'm thinking like, whoa, like I didn't do anything that bad. Like I didn't kill somebody and like bury them. Like I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, well, y'all won this competition, and this dude's standing there with the big old, like the big fat checks, the oversized checks for the school. And they're expecting an assembly to be there and all that. And so we had to like whip up an assembly. So this intercom announcement comes on, and anyways, they hand over the check, and I'm just like there, like wide eyed, like, this is crazy. And so then I was like, okay, I can really do this. And so I started to get a little bit more serious, and graduated high school. And I just kind of knew that that's the direction I wanted to go. All of the things added up. I like to adventure. I like to wonder. I don't like to be in one place or do one thing consistently. And some people might call that ADHD. I don't believe in that. I think it's just, you are who you're made to be. And that's one of those things I don't see as a negative. Like I can't ever be the guy. Like I hunt with so many guys that we go to the same spot every year. I can't do that. I gotta go to a new spot, see the new adventure, feel a little danger in the bones, and just come back with a new story. I think that's the main thing. Is I was meant 300 or 400 years ago to be the dude that goes and does something crazy. Everyone writes him off as dead, and then he comes back to the campfire and has this amazing story, and all the kids and adults are inspired. Like I think that's caveman me. That is, on this timeline, I happen to have a Sony camera, which makes the campfire stories even better. So that's kind of
50 years ago, you would have been a Wells Fargo stagecoach driver. Just a mailman in a different timeline, Chiam.
the Pony Express. That would have been me. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, I just kind of took that and ran with it out of high school. I went to junior college because didn't want to spend all the money on 4 year, and so I got all my classes out of the way in JUCO. And at the same time, I was running this little part-time business. Lonely Mountain Films is what it was called, from The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Lonely Mountain. For you nerds, y'all get it. I was running that while going to JUCO, and then I continued to run that business, doing weddings, commercials. Just I think everybody in film and photography kind of starts in that area, doing local commercials, wedding photography, all that kind of stuff is very common to start. And I was doing that and then ended up going to a 4 year school. UCA in Conway, Arkansas was the closest because at the time I didn't want to leave the South. I mean, I'm a proud Southerner through and through. I didn't want to go up north of the Mason Dixon with all the Yankees up here. So
Yeah. Yeah. Y'all will come back one day.
yeah. um, but UCA was literally the only school that offered a 4 year degree in filmmaking below the Mason Dixon. So I said, here we go. And then I did that and went there. And like I said, at the same time, running a business. And my first year professor for digital filmmaking one, Matthew Foss, shout out. He saw kind of, my talent, took me under his wing. And before I knew it, like semesters end, I was his director of photography for his company that he was running for commercial stuff. And so that was really weird, like going to class with the dude you work with, like right after class. So it's always hard to, he couldn't take me serious and I couldn't take him serious. And, but it was great. It was a great relationship. And I learned a lot from him. Especially he's a great producer, which doesn't really apply to our industry, but on a film set, you're basically staging everything. Everything's got to be perfect. And there's a lot of stress on the director to your main focus is worry about performance and story direction. That's the only thing you got to worry about. So think about all the vast amount of things outside of that purview. The producer is helping to handle that. It varies by film set. Like Hollywood movie, a producer, when you see that name or that title by a name, it's usually just someone who signed a check. Like executive producer, he just signed a check. But producer, and I should say AD, like assistant director, those two guys between them on smaller sets handle everything. So someone comes to you with a little problem, they handle it. They're usually all like just chain smoking cigarettes back to back because they don't sleep, and they handle every little thing. Like, this girl's upset because we don't have a vegan option, but she didn't check the box to say she was vegan. It's like stuff like that you never know as a director. And then an assistant director / producer just handles all of it. And then afterwards you're like, how did you smoke a carton today? And he's like, well, let me tell you, and goes through all of the things. But anyways, started doing that, started making a little bit of money, and continued running my business on the side. And I was just kind of doing that. And at some point I was filming all these commercials in like banks and offices and decent money. And then I'd do weddings on the weekends and hear Chris Stapleton nonstop. To this day, when I hear Tennessee whiskey, it just grates my ears. I can't stand that song. But it was great the first 200 times. About 201, I started trying to claw my eardrums out. But because that is at every white person's wedding, period, end of story. That's the one great thing about black weddings. No Chris Stapleton, usually ever. There are exceptions, but most of the time, oh my goodness, it's just a relief to be able to get down a little bit and not be so I got friends, and you know what I'm saying. Um, so anyways, doing all that, and I just like kind of looked up one day and I was like, I don't like staging stuff. I don't like, I was directing some short films, and that was my passion. And I think I'll always kind of have that. There will always be a little part of me that wants to create something original and like truly a story from scratch. But I think me as a person, I really like the truth, like that can shine through on camera. And I'm very careful about that with stuff I try to produce, especially in this industry. I want what's real to come across more so than does it look good or does it make the person look good. So I started filming a few hunts with the guys I hunted with in high school. They reached out, we started doing some stuff, and I wasn't making any money off that, but it was super cool. It was fun to go with some people and make some films, and we get back to hunting camp and watch it, and we're like, yeah, that's nice. I like that, and sharing it, and people asking me to come do their stuff. And then I was like, well, I think this is the direction that I want to go. And so I started putting my application out there, and I told myself, Idaho, Montana, Alaska, or bust. And that was it. That was so I only put in applications to those three places, and I ended up getting offered a job to be the videographer for an app, like a hunting app. And this app never came into existence. And I've told this story before on podcast, but there was a moment where I'd moved everything up here, threw everything into my car, and came up here, and I had roommates. I was living in a house with a couple of roommates and doing this job, and then and I'm it's Bozeman's really expensive and probably not as expensive as Alaska, but for the lower 48, this place is it's steep, and so I'm doing okay. And then all of a sudden, this app's no more, and um, the guy is kind of like, "Well, I have faith in you. You'll land on your feet." And so I'm kind of just like, "Whoa, what's next?" And so a big part of me, because I do love the South, and every time I go home and visit, it's so hard to leave, mainly because of the people, the culture, the food. I just love the South. I'm so proud of to be from there. But the adventure up here, it just keeps calling me back. So I kind of had to make a decision there. Stick it out here, make it work, stay in the outdoor industry, or go home and do weddings and listen to Chris Stapleton. And I played that song Tennessee Whiskey once in my headphones, and I made my decision. I was staying in Montana no matter what it took. And then the next day, it was actually surprisingly difficult. I don't know why. Maybe it was because I had a college degree. I could not find a job. Like I'm looking for an overnight stocker. Like I want to stock shelves. And I hit up Winco, I hit up Costco. I had interviews at all three places, and all of them said no. And I'm like, and maybe it's because I was clear. Maybe because I was like, hey, like you got me. When you got me, I'm gonna show up. I'll do push-ups in between shifts. I don't need no break. Like you got me when you got me. But there will be a point in a month or two where I'm hoping, like Lord willing, I'm transitioning into full-time filmmaking like I was in the South. And I don't know what it was, but it's so funny now. I go into those stores and I'm like, man, I couldn't even get a job stocking shelves here. And now I'm the director of content at Peaks. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But finally, Albertsons down the road here in Belgrade um, got me overnight shifts stocking shelves. I think it was like 5 or 6 days overnight. And then I'd wake up early-ish, or basically getting 6 hours of sleep, try to do some film jobs here and there. And somewhere around that point was when Ryan Lampers actually somehow found out about me and just texted me one day. I had no idea who this guy was. So I look him up on Instagram, like some homeless dude that hunts is what he looked like. And he, I guess you could say, he kind of gave me my big break, which there was no big money with that big break, but it let me pay rent. And through that, I did some stuff. He's like, hey, I got this brand Peaks, and they're cool. Could you take some photos of their stuff? And what was weird is that during my time here, not this office, but the one right through this wall was where I worked for the hunting app. And so I was kind of in the mix unknowingly the whole time. And so Bryce kind of knew me, had seen some of my stuff. And then, so I kind of put the pieces together in my head. I'm like, man, maybe if I do a really good job on some of these photos and stuff and cut them a reel, maybe I can get a little contract going with Peaks. And so I did just that, and Bryce loved it. And my buddy Ryan Bassham had to talk him in. Bryce does not like spending the money, but fortunately, Ryan Bassham and Dave Brinker kind of stepped in, and they're like, "Look, this kind of hybrid talent is not very common. What he's asking is more than reasonable." And so did a small like weekly retainer, and I'd focused that week on Peaks, and we made some banger content, and it just kept growing. And then it was 2 weeks, and now it's full time as the content director. So and I've loved every minute of it. It's been amazing to see, which I wasn't in on the ground level, but I was here right when the headlamp first dropped. I was a part of that drop. I did some assets for that, and then seeing the TPs launch and the sleeping bags and seeing what it's becoming and the team that we're kind of ringing in. It's been awesome to just be a part of that experience of a brand growing like this and seeing, you know, the people kind of stay the same. Like we're trying to collect like-minded people that are hunters and hard workers and honest people, and trying to get those kind of people around us. And so far we're doing a decent job. You come in here and you can actually, say hunting words, and we say hunting words back, which some places you walk into and you can't get that. um, so yeah, it's been awesome. And this year is going to be the best year from a content standpoint, I hope. Fingers crossed. We got a lot planned. Trying to get the audience, everyone, to understand and get to know all the people behind the brand, and walk everyone through product development, because for whatever reason there's this rock slide / Canadian narrative that we just get OEM white label. Hello Alibaba, can you give me a that's not this puffy that I'm wearing is like, I think, iteration 3 or 4, and we're not done yet. And it's like so nitpicky and little stuff. And when you're along the journey from like my point of view of this, you realize how much goes into a product. Like obviously not every product, like if you look at our baseball cap or our beanie, they're just beanies and baseball caps, but almost everything is performance driven. Like we find something that is not perfect, and we take that and we angle it for performance without like trying to chase one single metric. Like it's not all about weight, and it's not all about, the how it functions is more important than the weight or material or whatever else that you're trying to value. I think that's a niche spot that we've hit, where it's supposed to keep you comfortable and not just be ultra light. So, and that's how I hunt. That's the gear I try to collect. So it kind of goes hand in hand. That's why I get excited about product launch videos, because I'm geeking out behind the scenes about how this stuff gets made. So
I think just from our perspective, and probably for the listeners or viewers' perspective, if you're watching this on YouTube, a very minuscule population of our audience does like to watch these podcasts on YouTube. But if you are seeing Chiam on camera here, you can see his visible level of excitement as he's telling stories, and he has a genuine care for what he
mm-hmm.
does, and that energy that you exude in conversation about this is not all that common. Usually people that work for an outdoor industry company, um, of any stripe, really, that there's just and and this is this, and this thing does this, and there's nothing in the
No passion.
portrayal that gives me any inkling of a notion that you like what you're talking about. you
Mhm.
know and that kind of excitement on a personal level is nice to see as a consumer or viewer, that hey, these people actually care about what they're doing. And I think that going forward, having you there and doing a lot of this promotional type of approach to your job now, will help shed some light on that.
Yeah, and I have faith that your listeners, just the listeners, they're gonna feel that energy coming through. I just know.
I don't doubt it. And then so you got into what we would say is more serious backcountry hunting when you moved into Montana, and you mentioned getting involved with Lampers, and that kind of led to you being on a few different hunts with him and other guys, and you kind of got into this. Well, I mean, to quote The Office, "There's no inner circle," but you got in with the inner circle. And so just maybe for folks that aren't aware of the amount of change that would involve, because there are a number of people that'll reach out to us and say, I was just talking to one guy earlier, specifically today, about a hunt that he has planned to come up from the lower 48. He's from Texas, and he has this big trip, and for a lot of guys in the lower 48, a trip to Alaska is, I mean, that's, if anything, it might be a once in 2 or 3 times in a lifetime if you're doing it DIY. But for a lot of guys, if you're coming up guided, it might only be a one and done type deal. Now he's coming up DIY and has this whole big plan. But for you, it's a similar scenario of just that learning curve, because you coming from southern part of the U.S. down there in Texas, you mentioned some deer hunting and some waterfowl hunting, and that's obvious that you still have a love for wing shooting, because you've been with Ryan Bassam kind of all over the country with his waterfowl ventures. But just talk to us a little bit about what that change was like going into that. I suppose let's just call it Western mountain backpack hunting compared to your background.
Yeah, I did actually leave a significant part of some of my my former years, which there aren't that many because I'm still pretty young. But um, I had always had this draw to the mountain man area, which in my head was Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, that kind of feel. And so I would bring whichever buddy. This all started. I think I was 16, and I begged a canoe off of somebody and grabbed two of my buddies, and I said, I don't care what you feel like. We're going to the Buffalo River because I Googled it was cool. And we went, and I loved it. And some of those buddies continued their adventures, and some of them said, adventure is not for me. I'm going back to the AC, and I'm done with this. But some of us kind of stuck together, and I met some people in college, and from there, the Buffalo River kind of taught me a lot about camping, because I thought that I could survive off of what I caught, so I only packed like a few things of ramen, and I had like this Boy Scout 10 cooker, and I melted it through on a propane burner day one. So I'm foiling up some bass and undercooking them, and yeah, it was rough. So I was like starving, and at the time I probably weighed like $1.25 soaking wet. I mean, I was skinny, and I came back, and my grandma was like, "You're not going camping anymore. That's just you. You look horrible." And I was like, I feel great. I feel amazing. I did it. I survived. We put in. There's nowhere to go but downriver, and we did it. And no one in my town or in my family had ever done anything like that. And so for me, it was like this big like aha moment. Like yeah, I basically am an adventurer. I can do anything, and that's a great mindset to have. To overcome that, especially going in blind. I mean, a lot of people grow up having a dad to be like, "Hey, stupid, don't just bring ramen. That's dumb. Also, that Boy Scout 10 is going to burn through, dummy." I didn't have that. I had to I had to watch that Boy Scout 10 melt away with my hopes of buttered fish going with it. And so everything I learned was kind of just like a tough learning moment. So from there, I wanted to go up into the big West out here. And so I started doing some research, and I think my dad actually helped me find this. He somehow stumbled across it, but I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it's NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School. And yeah, so I did a course in the Absarokas in Wyoming for 30 days backpacking, and that taught me a lot. It also, like, as I broke into the hunting industry, I've learned there are drastic differences between REI backpacking and hunting backpacking. Very drastic differences. Boots being the main one. That was a wake up call. Boots, and I'd say probably shelter being the next, like a floorless at the time to me was just crazy talk, especially coming from the South. You sleep without a bug net. One, you're going to get torn up by mosquitoes. Two, you're going to wake up with ticks all over you, or chiggers, as we know from now. Everyone listening is educated. You don't want chiggers. Those are horrible. And the only real way to get rid of them is to take a bleach bath. I forgot to mention that. I'm not a doctor. You should not take my advice, because if you do too much bleach, it'll give you burns, obviously, because that's a chemical. So, yeah, so that's the best way to get rid of them is to soak in a bleach bath.
Is that why your hair is so blonde?
Yes, that's what happened. It used to be black, but I had to, I had to do the chigger treatment, and now I got these locks. It was straight too before that, and then it came out curly and blonde. So trust me, guys, you don't want chiggers. Get a full nest for your teepee. But yeah, I think I got a little taste of it, and I loved that trip. Still, some of the best memories. Just being out. The one thing I hated about Knowles, being a proud Texan, they wouldn't let you bring guns, just bear spray, which dumb. I felt powerless. I had a Swiss Army knife and bear spray. We had a bear in our camp one night, and it was kind of trashing around outside. We could hear it kind of popping. We had one of those electric fences to go around all the food bags. And we heard a pop, and then we heard it just kind of getting mad out there, and it was just thrashing around. And I remember vividly with my headlamp clicking it on and looking. We actually had a teepee style tent with a nest in it. I think it was like a black diamond, an old like blue and white old OG teepee from Black Diamond. And I look in between the nest and the actual shelter, and I see its paws, and I'm like, we're dead. There is nothing we're going to do except season ourselves in this tent. When homie back there gets so nervous, he sprays before the tent door is open, and we're just going to be done. No one's going to see how we die. We're not going to see it. It's just going to be over. And I just remember like gripping this Swiss Army knife and my bear spray and just praying like, God, if this is it, at least let me get a stab in, because I don't want to go out like a punk. And but he ended up we started yelling, and he ended up moseying off. He wasn't in a hurry. So we left that camp pretty quick the next morning. No one believed us until they saw the tracks. We were all kind of separate. We wanted to separate out our camps, and everyone was like, yeah, whatever. Y'all are just dreaming. Then they saw the tracks, like, okay, let's go. And so had a little bit of a taste for it and learned how to pack a bag and pack your food and all that stuff. And, but yeah, the learning curve for a Southerner, like hunting in the South, is you wake up a little bit before sunrise and you pour a cup of coffee, BS a little bit, get on the 4-wheeler, ride to the stand, walk a max here. This is a max. This is extreme. 100 yards, 150 yards. And you get in a stand and you sit until you're tired of sitting, or you kill a buck. And that's about it. And I didn't like that. But that's how it is. And I knew, like, I kind of knew. I still to this day am guilty of, like, I don't watch hunting content. I don't know why. So I'd not seen any of the, like, the other thing is I didn't know who I was hunting with. Like, it could have been Brad Pitt. I wouldn't, like, I don't know. Like, I don't keep up with that kind of stuff. I don't know who's who. So Brian Call's there on that hunt. Mark Livesey. I'm like, weirdos, like dudes, these weird dudes.
Guys always talking smack about each other about who has bigger muscles and
yeah, who's balding better. Spoiler, it's Livesey. That's why he has the earrings, to distract from the head. That's all I'm going to say. I love you, Mark. I'm just kidding. Please don't. He always comes back 10 times worse for me. I say like a little bitty thing, and he's like, when I first met Kyle, we had to pull him out of LGBTQ parade, and then we had to like yank him out of there and set him straight. And he gets worse every time he tells the story about how I was wearing skinny jeans and penny loafers. And from what I remember, I don't even think I own skinny jeans. Maybe I was just overweight. I don't know.
I'm definitely going to have to clip this and send it to Mark and Brian and let them be the judge of that. So,
well, I'm telling you, that story evolves every time he tells it.
Mark, and this is completely unrelated, but this just came to mind. Mark is like the RFK of the hunting industry from Mountain West.
Except he's not into health stuff. He just drinks White Monsters and calls it a day. That's the only difference. Yeah.
That's what makes him one of us.
That's true. That's true. He is from Missouri, so he's a fellow Southerner. So you know what? I'll take Mark any day over these Yankees I got around right now. So yeah, me and Mark are homies, Southern homies. But yeah, I think that being around llamas too was awesome. We actually that first trip, that I went on, we had a llama die from some kind of tick paralysis. It wasn't that day, but I remember, yeah. So it was everyone left me and Mark, which back then I was like, okay, this must happen rarely. Well, now I know that if they get a chance to ditch you, they gone. And so me and Mark are back there, and I'm being a nice guy, and I'm like, well, I'll help Mark, and mainly because I wanted to like keep playing around with the llamas because at the time I thought they were so cool. Now I hate them. I hate llamas now. But at the time I loved them, and that was before I got spit on. Now I hate them. Yeah, you see them rev their head back, and it kind of looks like they're looking at something. You better move, because if you get pelted by that stuff, you ain't stalking anything that day because it stinks to high heaven. Oh gosh, yeah, you can tell when they've been fighting when you walk. Like if you leave them and you walk back up on them, and they're kind of tied close together, you can smell that they've been fighting because of the bile. Because it's like basically putting your finger down your throat, making yourself throw up, and then spitting it on somebody is the equivalent of what they do. Yeah, it's gross. It's like grass flies, whatever they've been eating, just like a spider web of bile.
We need to put those in Minneapolis for the ice protests.
Yeah, they would be effective.
I didn't know that was actually like stomach content or bile. I had no idea. I thought it was just like extra large salivary glands. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, you'll hear it too. You hear like it's like a shotgun cocking. It's like pow. So yeah, you'll hear it coming when you learn. And if you see me or Mark move, it's a good sign to just like literally duck and cover because you don't know where it's going to go, how many, because it's a chain reaction, right? Like one of them does it and it hits like 3 down the chain, and then they all look back and they're like, oh no, and then they start shooting back, and then you're just like, it's like a gang drive-by. Kids are getting hit. It's just crazy, man. So yeah. Anyways, nothing wrong with llamas. They carry a lot of weight. All I'm saying is that I ain't never had a horse spit on me like that.
There is a point to that. However, there's a friend of ours here in town that spent a few weeks in a hospital after getting thrown off of a horse that got close to the trailer at the end of a hunt down in your neck of the woods there, and the horse decided that it was time to run to the trailer, and his saddle kind of tipped off to one side, and he got chucked and broke a whole lot of stuff inside. I mean, it easily could have killed him in that situation. Easily. I mean, internal bleeding. I think his spleen was removed because of it. All his ribs on one side were broken. Just incredible amount of damage. So I used to have this kind of, I hate to use the word this way, but kind of a more romantic vision of one day going on a horseback hunt.
Did you really?
Out in the mountains. Oh yeah. Up until about 3 months ago. Yeah. I wanted to do it with our friend from down in the mountains in the southern part of the state here. Cause he's done some work on horseback. He guided a moose hunt on horseback last year. So I always kind of had this vision of maybe one day I'll get to go out in the mountains with a horse pack train and ride in somewhere, non-motorized area, and just get to where nobody can hike, but nobody can ride on a motorized machine, and it's too skinny to land an airplane. So I'll just get into the biggest, baddest stuff. And then I saw Tyler's story about him in the hospital, and I heard the story on a podcast, and I said, yeah, you know what? I think I'd rather just never do that, but I don't know. Llamas seemed safer until Chiam started talking about them. So now I don't know. I might have to just get goats.
Just put on a backpack and walk.
Yeah. Just hike yourself.
Yeah, but then you can't take the kind of stuff Mark does, like this big can of Maxwell House latte mix, that kind of stuff, Yeah, and an air mattress that's the size of the 6-person tent. I almost have to sleep outside. His air mattress is so big. Like yeah. He's spoiled. He won't admit it, but he's spoiled. And then, well, I won't throw him under the bus too much, but I will just say that there was a point in the night where I heard a and I was like, Mark, did you bring cans in here? And he's like, oh yeah, I did. And so yeah, he'll sneak in a little white monster or something like that, and then he'll pop it out least expected, and you're like, dude, and it's just so like you're in 3 days and you haven't heard the sound of a hissing crack of a can in so long, and it just like awakens some sense in you where you're like, ooh, I need some carbonation. And then he'll just drink it there in front of you and be like, yeah, well, you should get llamas. So yeah, no, llamas are great. They're a lot less dangerous, I think. I mean, I've actually been trampled and then like linebacker tackled once. Trampled once and then linebacker tackled once. No broken bones to show. No, llamas. That's what I'm saying. I think they're a little bit less dangerous. No, not horses. No. Um, the first time we were in Washington State, I think we had some llamas, and they get real weird. They wig out around canyony stuff because that's where cats live, and that's their number one predator from their homeland back in wherever, Peru or Ecuador or wherever they came from. The number one thing is always cats for them, and so they get in stone draws and stuff, and they start acting like they're on crack. They're eyes peeled. Charlie's in the trees. They're on alert. And we were going through one of those places, and we we have two trains kind of set apart. I think it's like 3 and 3, and my lead llama had been solid. We had just changed places. We've been hunting for like 4 days. I got used to him. We were kind of buddies. I was starting to not be so racist towards llamas again. He was bringing me into the fold, and then next thing I know, he's like shoved me aside. Of course, they got the panniers on the side. So, and this trail is like cliff on one side and like drop off on the other. And so I'm the only way for me to stay on the trail is to kind of like grab onto a pannier and just like get drug. And so I'm just kind of drug. I'm hanging there. I break a microphone on my camera because it's strapped to my backpack. And then I finally managed to get up and get in front of him. And I like bend down to like pick up some microphone parts that fell off. And the minute I bend down, he just tramples me, just runs over, just goes around the switchback. And I'm like still holding him, but he's managed to put all 4 hooves in me, which I had bruises, but they're light on their feet, I guess, because it didn't do too much damage. I was just mad. They weren't my llamas, but they would have, if they were, they would have suffered some strict trekking pole discipline. Other great use for a trekking pole is keeping llamas in line. Mark will tell you that too. But second time we were coming from a mule deer hunt, and it's out near the breaks area. I wouldn't say the breaks, but the Missouri breaks here. It's close to that area. And I was with a guy, and I think we'd rented llamas, and we get the trailer stuck. And this road, all these roads out here, like this gravel rock deposit stuff, turns into gumbo when it rains. And it was one of those mild winters where the snow melted and a little bit of rain fell, and it was like mudding 101 getting out of there. And we were actually super lucky to make it as far as we did before we got stuck. Well, we got it stuck, so we got to get the llamas out of the trailer. So my buddy is taking the llamas out of the side door, and I'm taking the other 2 out of the back when he gets those done, and then we'll split the side of the trailer, tie them up, whatever. I get the first one out. He's coming out the rear of the trailer, and I forget this every time. Llamas you have to train them to walk in mud and water. They hate it. They won't do it if they can help it. Absolutely hate it. So younger llamas, if you're ever renting llamas or with someone, they're like, hey, that's a young one, know that he will murder you to not step in mud. Like, he will do anything possible to not step in mud, and will try defy logic and try to jump over like he'll just kind of like Superman and then end up 3 feet into the river anyways, which is worse than just walking in, but he will try to jump over anything. So when you feel him getting ready, he's about to try to LeBron James jump over you. But that's what this one did, because it was super muddy and he could hear the mud, I guess, and see it. I don't know how smart they are. They seem pretty dumb, but this one figured out that there was mud on the ground. And I'm like, come on, get out, and pulling the lead. Well, he kind of like starts fighting me, and I get ready to like pull. Well, he wasn't fighting me. He was getting ready to jump. He takes a step back to get some momentum built. And he just, I mean, the next thing I know, I got chest fur in my face, and he just, bam, just like a linebacker, just like, oh man, it was like a ESPN clip. I mean, laid out. And the only thing that saved me there was it was super muddy. So like impact and then him landing on me, it was just like pushing me further into the mud. So, But yeah, anyways, yeah, that whole hunt was new for me because of the llamas, because of those guys, the hunting style. This is my first bear hunt ever. Um, so all of it brand new, but it was just, it felt, I don't know. It just felt like what I was supposed to be doing. Like it felt natural. I mean, I think we get all hot and bothered and worried about like, oh, we got to have this gear, we got to do whatever. But like when you have that mentality of it doesn't, nothing matters. I'll just survive. Everything changes, and that's why I was like, this is awesome. This is a fantastic way to spend a spring couple weeks, and it's still to this day. I can remember, it was the first time I was out in this Western hemisphere in the spring. I remember the smells. I remember just how fresh the water felt when you put your glass under a waterfall and, drink. All of that, just to this day, when I think about bear hunting, like those senses, those perceptions of that hunt, they just hit me like a flood. And that's one of the reasons I really love spring bear. Is because of all that. Everything seems to be waking up, everything's melting. It's just a great time of year. And that's like the bears are fun, but the style of hunting a little bit more laid back. It's not like super pressure, and you're not chasing, it's not like chasing elk all day or sitting stationary all day waiting for the mule deer buck to come. It's just, you can pound feet, get down the trail. You can do whatever you want. You can sleep in until 10. You can do whatever you want. It's a spring bear hunt, so it's low pressure, more of a camping adventure trip. That's why I like it so much. But yeah, I learned a ton. Everything I had was borrowed gear on that hunt, and so from there I started piece by piece slowly, because as we all here know, hunting gear is very expensive. So that's kind of where my gear nerdiness, as far as like, I've always been a gear nerd about camera gear. I got so many people hit me up on the daily asking me about this stuff, and I love to answer it. But the hunting gear stuff, I started to have a mind for that too. I started to figure out, well, this is what everyone's using. Is there something better? Figuring that out, piecing it together. And that's really why I've enjoyed working with Peaks so far, is it feels like if I could make a product, a lot of the times that's what we end up making, and fixing these problems with some of this stuff. And so slowly I was piecing together my kit and dialing it in and learning. And what I did take for granted the first couple years was because I didn't really know these guys. It's like never watching an NBA game. You play pickup with Michael Jordan and you're just like, man, that dude was pretty good, whatever, and go home. You never knew. Like, yeah, he was pretty good. I liked that windmill he did. But it's kind of the same thing. I'm just like, yeah, whatever, another hunt under the belt, huzzah. But like looking back, it's been, some of the greats. I've had the privilege to be behind the camera and be with some of the greats and just soak it in. So it translates to my own hunts. The what would Jesus do kind of thing. What would so and so do? And I remember an exact moment in a hunt where this happened, and in my head I was like, well, I would do this, and then they surprise me and do something different, and I mental note, write that down, and it's come to save me many a time. So I'm super fortunate. Not only, blessed all the way around, but I think I kind of ignored the part where people would kill for that kind of experience, being with those kind of people, not necessarily because of the person or whatever, take all that out. But to just watch MJ practice, right? You would become a better basketball player. And I feel like I've had the privilege to be around some really good people of our day, it'd be like being around John Coulter and then turn around and being like, well, I guess I'm a decent mountain man now. So I feel really blessed and fortunate that a lot of the people I've hunted with, we remain friends, and I've learned a lot. And it's just been really good, because I was a greenhorn coming in for sure. I was like Jeremiah Johnson when he first started, and everybody was like my bear claw. Everybody was kind of taking me under their wing, and it was great. A lot of people say that the hunting industry can be so abrasive, I guess. People are too good for you, too good for thou, that kind of stuff. That's not been my experience. Everybody's going to be who they are online for their own protection or for whatever. But I think the majority of these guys, they are, if you treat them like just another dude, they are just another dude in your head too. And they're just dudes that are good at hunting, and it's been awesome to get to know them on a personal level. And it's also nice to be around killers, because I know the difference at the at the end of a film trip, because there's no dead animal, and that stinks. Of course, everybody has those moments, but it is nice going into a hunt knowing that there's, like, if anyone can do it, this guy can do it, whoever it is, So, but when you start to, like, there's been a couple times where I've gone out with people and I don't ever butt head. This is the number one thing I can say for camera guys. Don't give your opinion. No one cares what you think the wind's doing, dude. Shut your mouth and film. And I have, like, these internal dialogues, and I'm glad that I'm quiet first and talk later. That has saved me many a times in my role as cameraman, because a lot of the times you'll want to say something so bad because you would be in that position and you would do something different, and you think they're screwing up their hunt, which is in turn screwing up your film, and you want to say something. 99% of the time, if that dude's confident enough for you to come film his hunt, he knows what he's doing, and you should just be quiet and learn something. And that's that. A lot of the times, that's what's happened is I'll have this issue, and I'll be like, I just don't think I'd do that. And then 10 minutes later, I'm like, okay, I'm so glad I didn't speak up, because I was dead wrong the way I was going to do this. This dude's clearly been here before. So, yeah, camera guys, the number one piece of advice I can give you is just roll film and be quiet.
Yeah. I think that's good advice for anyone that's even just tagging along and trying to learn. Well, there's the old saying, just be a sponge, right?
Yeah.
Just be a sponge. And there have been times where I've hunted with people where I have been the less experienced person in years past, and I found myself wanting to assert my opinion over some situation or some choice, and I didn't realize and this happened specifically with a couple of people that I hunted with early on. Mo's dad was one of them, and my dad was one of them. And when we moved back to the States when I was a teenager, Mo's dad was the first one that I was with killing a bear. Mo shot a bear on Friday night, and then his dad said, well, if you want to go to my baits with me tomorrow, then I think it was 3 baits in this particular area that him and a buddy of his had. And he said, well, since you guys worked all season and Mo got his bear, you can come with me and try to shoot a bear off one of my baits tomorrow. And so I ended up shooting my first bear the following night in a totally different area. And he also shot a bear 3 hours after I did. So that 24 hours, 3 dead bears kind of got a pretty deep hook in me there. I have been addicted to bear hunting ever since. Yeah. But looking back at it now, and this didn't occur to me until probably about a year or so ago. Well, as you get older and you have more memories to kind of draw from, you notice that certain older memories just kind of tend to not get thought about much. And for some reason, I was thinking about my earlier years, and I was wondering about different things. And this thought hit me that Mo's dad and my dad would have this discussion, or what I thought was a discussion, on a trip. And they would say something and present it as, this is what we're going to do, but we could also do this. And I thought that was my point in time to give my opinion. But they weren't asking my opinion. They were doing that for my benefit to see their thought process. Does that make sense? And that also happened with the first outfitter that I ever worked for. The first season I was there, I guarantee he probably wanted to cut his ears off after the first couple of weeks that I was in camp with him, because I was asking question after question after question. But he was really good about explaining that to me, and that's kind of when it hit me. So I guess it was longer ago than a couple years, but that was when it hit me. And he made it a point to say, when you have a client in the field, you want them to have an appreciation for the process
Mhm.
and explain things and explain to them your choices that you have, but not in such a way that they feel like they have to make the decision themselves. And that's very valuable from a client's perspective. I have been told by clients that they appreciate that. And I can appreciate that because when I was younger and getting started in hunting up here, I felt the same way. Even though my opinion meant zero
Mhm.
to Mo's dad or to my dad necessarily in that moment, I wasn't the one that was going to make that decision. But them explaining and just putting that information from their thought process instead of them just thinking about this on the way into a spot and just being totally quiet, they would take the time to explain something, explain a choice, and this is what I'm seeing here. So we could do this or we could do this. And that helped me learn a lot faster. And at some point, you just learn to just close your mouth and be a sponge, and you realize they're not asking my opinion, they're teaching me. And so you have to recognize those moments. And that's, I would imagine that was a huge leg up for you in getting that start in that Western hunting style, if you will, and getting to hunt with those kind of guys.
Yeah, I think it could be applied to anything that men do with each other. If you don't know and you hadn't done this for 10 years, then you should probably just take their word for it and go along with it and learn something. So, yeah.
Thing at work with my guys.
Yeah.
I'll if I have time with something, I'll be like, so this is what we're gonna do. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they have a good idea, right?
Yeah.
That's not to discount that, but yeah, sometimes I'm talking through it to
Yep.
get through it in my mind, also so they can learn and see how I'm thinking about it.
Thanks for listening to part 1 of our interview with Chiam Loyd from Peaks Equipment. We ended up going pretty long with this conversation, so we hope you enjoyed the part 1 here of his kind of backstory and how he got to where he is now. Stay tuned for part 2 is going to drop next week. In the interim week, instead of being every other week, this one will have part 2 drop 1 week from today. And that is a lot more focused on Peaks Equipment as a company and a lot of product specific and gear topics and nitty gritty details that we ramble on for quite some time with Chiam there. So we appreciate you guys staying tuned for that, and just be on the lookout for next week's part 2 of the interview with Chiam Loyd. Thanks for listening and enjoy the next episode. Tread lightly, but don't tread well.